Emily, welcome to Growing Pains. I am so grateful that you've joined me today.
Oh my gosh, Allie, I am so excited to chat with you. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, of course. So we got to know each other a little bit here before we pressed record, but I want to know for everybody listening, tell me a little bit about your business and the family that you have at home.
Yeah, so I am the founder of the Servicepreneur Network, and I work with entrepreneurs to build, market, and grow their service based business. So if somebody has a business centered around their skills, their knowledge, their expertise, I work with them to really help them put the right marketing foundations in on a budget because I firmly believe that market or that money shouldn't be a barrier for somebody who is just building their business to get access to expert guidance, insight, strategy. So I have an online community where I help put those foundations in place and give them access to my 10 plus years in corporate marketing, working with Fortune 500 companies, all for $67 a month. And they get
Oh
access
my
to
gosh.
workshops and trainings and office hours with me. And I just truly love helping servicepreneurs. So I have that. And then my family is myself and my husband, and we've got a little cat as well. And we are very much in the throes of our fertility journey, trying to start our family.
Yeah. So I'm like wondering, how did you get started? So you have an extensive corporate background. What was that leap of faith like? And what was kind of the moment where you were like, okay, corporate life isn't for me anymore. Let's do this entrepreneurship thing?
Ooh, that is such a good question. So I joke and I say that I got to the top of the corporate ladder. I looked around and I was like, this can't be it. And I just felt like I had so much more to offer, and the work that I was doing just wasn't fulfilling me anymore. And ironically enough, it was my husband who kind of pushed me off the deep end because I would come home and I was just like, I feel like I have more to give. I feel like there's more I could be doing. I want to be making a bigger impact. And he's like, why don't you just start your own business already? And so
Mm,
I had been thinking about it for a while, but I think I needed somebody else to just actually say the words out loud for me to like see it as more as this, I less of an idea and more of like, no, I could actually do this. So it was really like his confidence that I had to borrow first in order for me to kind of make that leap. But it really just stemmed from, I have really touched all aspects of marketing throughout my career. I've been pretty lucky in that. And I went from working with these massive companies, and it was great and I learned a lot, but I don't know, I've always just been drawn to like the quote unquote little guy and the person who is just getting started. And I thought that the impact that I could make, the people that I could reach, the businesses that I could help people build, and the impact that they could have on their communities was kind of the start of what that legacy could look like for me in kind of taking my corporate knowledge and bringing that to life in a entrepreneurship capacity. And so far, we're doing well. We just crossed over my 1 year mark as an entrepreneur, and it just feels really great. And I just love the people that I get to work with every day to kind of help them take their vision for their business and articulate that in a way that aligns their marketing strategies to help them reach those goals.
that's so amazing. Honestly, so I know so many service providers, Emily, who are like so good at the thing that
Yeah.
then like they end up as a business owner and then like running the business. So from marketing to sales to HR to the financial picture to the operations, all that stuff, it starts to feel really cumbersome. And they're like, well, dang,
Yeah.
I got into this to like be a website builder. Like I want to build websites all day. And all of a sudden it feels like they've got all these other things. So I really appreciate that you navigate or help navigate through that from a marketing perspective, because I think so many service providers are so good at the thing that they do that they forget to market themselves sometimes.
Yeah. Well, it's so funny you say that because, at least from what I have seen, is service-based businesses truly love helping other people, right? So they have cultivated this great skill set. They've taken all their knowledge, their expertise, and they're channeling that into helping others. And the irony there is because they're spending all of their time helping their clients and doing great work, that they either forget and put themselves on the back burner, or they don't know how to market it. And then they get frustrated or things aren't working. Or a big driver for me was there's a lot of people that talk about content, for example, on social media, and it is overwhelming because when you're a
Yeah.
business owner, there are very specific things that you have to outsource as a business owner, right? Like you have to have somebody who is your lawyer creating your contracts and agreements, right? You need an accountant or a CPA to help you with your taxes. Marketing is always the one that people are like, all right, I can hold on to that. But then what ends
Hmm.
up happening is they go and they try to find these resources. And most people that are posting about content and marketing and all these strategies are not specific to service based businesses. And our business models, you have one too. Like we're very different than
Hmm.
an influencer who is promoting their lifestyle or an e commerce brand with physical products. And it's
Hmm.
different because
Yeah.
marketing is, I have to showcase my expertise and prove that I'm credible and that I have the ability to get my clients the results that they want. But then I also
Hmm.
have to show my clients sometimes that's intangible. Like, how do I show that I help with strategy, right? Or
Right.
operations? And
Yeah.
it's so difficult. And so I really leaned into one, my strength, because I worked with service based businesses in my corporate career, but helping to eliminate the stress and the frustration of having to keep that and do it themselves, but do it
Hmm.
right. And that's kind of what was the vision behind creating this network and this community where people could get the support, the guidance. They know that if they implement some of the strategies that I'm sharing, it will work for their business. That mostly like the confidence in the community and the mindset that like,
Hmm.
yeah, I can do it, because so much of a service-based business is believing you can do things, right? Your
Totally.
capabilities to provide a result. And when you think about it, sometimes you can't really differentiate between the services that you have to provide your clients and the business you have to build. And so
Hmm.
if you are constantly thinking like, I don't know how to do this, I can't do this, it's going to have an impact on your business. And so I just try to help navigate that world, bringing in experts, because obviously I don't know everything either, and really just create the system and support for servicepreneurs to thrive.
I love that so much. It's so elegant too. I think it's really impossible sometimes to think about all the support that someone could need, but the fact that you've packaged this together in a really cool community feels really great. So congrats on your
Thank
1 year
you.
in entrepreneurship and how wonderful everything sounds like it's going. When did you guys decide that it was time for you guys to start trying for a family? I think as we like make big shifts like that, right? Like leaving corporate and starting your own company, I mean, I guess it feels natural to maybe grow your family at the same time, right? Bite off all the stuff at the same time. But what was that conversation like? When did you know it was the right time for you guys to begin this journey?
Yeah. So, background, my husband and I will have been together for 10 years in January. Married for
Congrats.
two. Thank you. Married for two just this week. We basically were like, we got married and we started trying, and we've been trying ever since. So, our struggles have been just about 2 years now of us trying to get pregnant. And we never really had a conversation because it just felt like it was the natural thing to do. We had been together for so long and we wanted to have children. And so we started trying. But the interesting piece for us was when I was trying to make that decision between leaving corporate, launching my own job, it was really, or launching my own business, it was really, well, if I don't do it now, eventually we're going to have a kid. And then my priorities are going to be different. My expectation of what I can handle into my business and trying to have a child at the same time. So it really was just the decision of launch the business, see how far we can get into it before we do have a baby. And so for us, it was just like a natural conversation, but we're still working on it. We had some challenges earlier this year that kind of set us back from a family standpoint, but for us it was never an if but a when, and kind of continuing on that journey for the past couple of years as we hope for the little one to come around.
Well, Emily, like what changed in your business or just even in like the way you thought about how you structured things when you guys were like, look, I know that one of the reasons I'm doing this is because we want to have a family in the future. Cause we were talking about this before we press record. I think there's a very under discussed portion of becoming a parent that is the trying to conceive piece. And whether you're working for yourself or you're working for somebody else, you envision that life and you plan that life with however many kiddos you're hopeful to have, right? And so what was changing in some of the decisions you were making, both in like how you were setting up your business, how you were setting up your offers? Did anything kind of shift there?
Yeah. So I started my business only doing one on one. So I
Mhm.
have consulting, I do consulting work as well. So I have one on one clients that I'm working with. And I was always envious of other entrepreneurs that were able to kind of have a family, but also juggle their business. And so I really was trying to just study like, what are their business models? What are they doing
Mhm.
differently? And it really came down to time and flexibility. And so when I was thinking, okay, we're hoping it was going to happen this year, what do I need to be thinking about? And so at the end of
Mhm.
last year, I was thinking, okay, I know my business is working with servicepreneurs. I landed on the Servicepreneur Network and saying, okay, if I have a community, I can reach more people. I can give a lot of direct time to them and support them in this community, but it takes a little bit of the pressure off for me to have so many more one-on-one clients, and it allows me
Mhm.
to think about how can I better serve that community? What can I create that's going to reach a larger group of people? And so I was looking more at like additional ways of creating income where maybe I only need to have one or two one-on-one clients because I'm getting some income on this side. And then
Mhm.
what am I doing with my podcast in terms of ads and things that I could be doing to promote into different offers that I have? And so for me, I'm never the person that's like, well, you can only take on so many one-on-one clients until you're miserable and you have to move into like the group coaching space or all of these. It
Mhm.
was never really about that. Like I truly, it fills my cup to work with someone, whether it's one-on-one or one to few or many or whatever. So it was never that for me, but it was more of like, there's going to come a time where I'm going to have to take a step back. And if
Mhm.
I'm pregnant or if I have a newborn or a baby or whatever that insert new age here, right? I wanted to know that I could still dedicate great time to my community without having to feel guilty about it, because guilt I feel like is like constantly for women in general, like it's constantly hovering around and we're constantly
Yeah.
thinking about who am I not helping, what can I be doing better, and all the negative self-talk that we do. And so that was really where a lot of my decision making stemmed from. But I also, so it was more also a gap in the market. I knew that there wasn't an option available for servicepreneurs who didn't have a lot of money to spend. So it was, how do I strategically think about the future and build a business with that in mind, while also making sure while I'm waiting for that to happen, it still brings me joy. It still excites me. And I kind of was able to create something beautiful that checks all those boxes. And now, when that happens, I know that I've put better systems and processes in place to make sure that I can step away. I can
Mhm.
have the time that I'm like, okay, these are the days when I know I'm live with my community. These are the things that I'm creating for them. But it allowed me to kind of look at time differently and create something that I know is going to make sense when things in my personal life shift, because I'm in this waiting game, waiting for that to happen, you know?
Yeah. Listen, Emily, the challenges that you've been through in trying to start your family are incredible. And I can't believe I experience you as so positive and bubbly. And like, I know so many people, myself included, who would just be rocked by this experience. And I'm not saying that you don't feel that way off of these types of conversations, but there's so much life coming in. You've had a crazy last year. And when I guess you planned, I think we were talking about this before we jumped in, you were planning on this being like a big building season, right? Like a big growth season. And so when did that shift? And how did you add that to your panel of grief? Because listen, I have a business. I've been running it for 7 years. I've got master maternity leave for 2.5. Like they are also kind of like my babies. When they do really well, I'm super excited. I'm over here cheering. And when they're not doing great, the endless stream of stuff in the back of my mind that's always going on, it really does feel like having two more kids. So, how did you kind of navigate that shift in season? And how did you know that you were in a season of no instead of a season of go?
Yeah. So around the beginning of this year, I decided to join a mastermind for podcasters because I have a podcast as well. And I was so excited. I think there was like 8 of us in this mastermind, and it was all geared towards aligning your business with your podcast and how can you integrate those together and use that as a growth opportunity. And so I went into the beginning of this year, Allie, with like, this is my growth season. I'm going to be working hard. Like I was prepared to be like, I'm up early, I'm working long hours, I'm making sacrifices to build this because of the vision was right in front of my face. And I was like,
Mhm.
I just need time to execute it and make moves essentially. And so I joined this mastermind. I had things mapped out. At the end of May, I found out I was pregnant. And I was like through the moon for about 30 seconds because I was immediately met with complications. And I was in the hospital every week for 2 months because I wouldn't be seen before that because we had also just moved to Florida. So I didn't have an OBGYN or anything set up and they wouldn't see me because I wasn't established. So I was basically every Friday morning going to the emergency room to get blood work and testing. And so I went from having like this great vision and excitement and like motivation and like ready to work so hard to the fact that like my body wasn't allowing me to do that. And then add in the emotional challenges that comes with that. And then the mental and all of the things. And paired with me being like my family was in New York, we were down in Florida. I didn't want to tell anybody yet because the doctors wouldn't give me a definitive answer. And they were like, this could turn around, but don't get too excited. And so when you're pregnant for the first time, I was like, okay, well, I would be home at this time and I'd be at the point where I could tell people and I could do something fun
Yeah.
if this turns around. And so, like, I was just replaying all of these scenarios in my brain. And we ended up losing the pregnancy in the first trimester. And I am a very positive human, but it was the hardest experience that I had ever gone through. And we went through the DNC procedure and all of that. And it was just to be far from family and to like have to navigate that. It was really hard. And I tried so hard to find resources around how do you navigate trying to build your business and build your family at the same time. And I was unsuccessful. And what ended up happening is I got down these social media algorithms, these ad algorithms that were like all baby all the time. And so I
Mm.
shut down and I wasn't on social media. I barely was talking to anybody at that time because I was just trying to navigate this grief while like trying to maintain my clients and keep my energy levels just high enough to be able to be worthy of the money they were giving me. So I wouldn't say that I navigated it successfully, but I navigated it the best I knew how. And I am proud of myself for that because I think there's so many people that are like, oh, I should have done something different or I should have been better or I should have been able to get through it faster. I shouldn't be emotional or, insert all the shit is here.
Yeah.
And I have really worked so hard just to be like, nope, you did the best you could. And you came out on the other side. And that was how I had to get through it and allow myself time to grieve and channel my energy in my clients strategically. But I like growth in my business stopped. Like I wasn't doing any marketing, I wasn't doing anything proactively. And I really tried hard to allow myself to be comfortable with status quo, which for somebody like me who is like one of my favorite characteristics of myself is my work ethic and my drive. That was so hard. But I just kept saying, like, this is happening to you. It's not defining who you are. It's not changing who you are. And nobody is going to think less of you because you're not doing what everybody else is doing or you're not moving at the speed that other people are. Though, like for me, it was I put blinders on. I've allowed myself to stay with the status quo and I just let myself grieve in the time that I needed to and just kept saying, like, you're going to get through this. You'll be better on the other side. Just keep working. Just keep working. And it took me a long time. And I think I'm just now coming out of it and 6 months later. But yeah, it's the hardest thing. And I would never want anybody to experience it. But I also think that it's just so lonely. And so having conversations like this are so beautiful because it allows people to realize they're not alone because no one talks about it. in general, let alone if you're an entrepreneur. So I've really enjoyed people making the space for this conversation. And I think it's helping me grieve a little bit too.
It's good to feel heard, right?
Yeah.
And understood a lot. Like Emily, I think while we have not lost a pregnancy, we were very blessed with two beautiful, healthy boys. And there are so many times when I talk with moms who have navigated loss in pregnancy or intense health issues, like early on with their kids, or
Yeah.
something that just like completely disrupts the picture of what we see, right? As either the perfection or whatever, right? And there's so much for women. There's so much, keep going. Don't show that you're sad, or don't share with your clients that you're navigating this, or try to just stuff it down. And I think recently we're starting to see that like the full person and the full spectrum and panel of emotions is actually extremely beautiful, and it helps people get to know each other and serve on a deeper level. But what was that like for you? Like showing up for your clients, really being in a position where, because I know this, like planning for maternity leave with moms all the time. I do this all the time. They say, I'm petrified to tell my clients I'm pregnant. Petrified. They are so scared to do it. And I think the crazy thing is like, we're afraid to like pull the curtain back. We're afraid to like show our humanity, show the raw emotional challenges that come along with growing a connected family.
Yeah.
So what was that like for you on your side?
I, generally speaking, was very quiet. I didn't talk about it. My family didn't know until it was like truly confirmed that we had lost the pregnancy. And then I was like, well, we're having the procedure next week, sort of thing. So I was
Mm.
very kept things close to the chest. But then once I actually started talking about it, I realized that it's going to have to, the conversation's going to have to come up. I remember I had a client that needed me to have this big important meeting on a Tuesday, and I was having the procedure done on Monday, and I was like, I'm not going to be able to make it. And
Mm.
he was like, is everything all right? And I was like, no, but I'm having a procedure done and I'm probably going to be off the radar for the entire week. And I eventually had told him why. I am so fortunate that I have clients that I work with that completely understood. And I think that's thing that's really important is like we're constantly worrying about the impact to our clients, right? How are they going to handle me being out of the office? How are they handle me going on maternity leave? And our fear and our worries and our guilt stems from the impact on them, which is completely valid. But I think it's important to remember that if you've got great clients and you're doing great work, that again, it goes back to like, this is happening to me, but it doesn't take away any of the characteristics to why they hired me in the first place. So,
Mhm.
yes, is it an inconvenience that I was out for an entire week? And realistically, I probably shouldn't. I wasn't ready to go back, but I couldn't help myself and I needed something as a distraction afterwards. But
Mhm.
was it convenient? Absolutely not. But it wasn't something they were going to fire me over, right?
Sure.
Because they know that Emily's got a strong work ethic. She responds immediately when we need something. Her turnaround times are always within the expectations set within my contracts with them. And so, because the normal was me delivering on time, going above and beyond, making sure that I'm serving my clients the way that I want to, that represents my brand and my business, me having to take a step back never changed their expectation of me or any sort of shifts in that relationship. Now, I can't speak to maternity leave because certainly the time frame of that is much different, but I do think if you're vetting your clients properly and you're trying to find people that like have the same values as you and you know that like you're going to come back, and if you do come back you're going to pick right back up where you were and deliver just as you did before. Or maybe
Mhm.
it's a conversation around like how do things need to shift or what's going to happen in the interim. Like
Mhm.
again, my window was much shorter where we just moved the meeting and everything was okay. But I do think that we oftentimes take on so much of this responsibility to do everything we can to make our clients happy. But at the end of the day, we all are human, right? They have
Mhm.
things that are going on. They probably are comfortable changing a meeting at the last minute on you or whatever the business that you have is. So it works both ways. Like I said, I'm very lucky with the clients that I work with that all of them were understanding. But I think me being comfortable explaining that, like it has changed the dynamic of my client relationships where they know what I've gone through. They ask me how I'm doing and they don't ever come out and ask me the hard question, but I know the underlying ask that how are you doing? How are things been with the family? Things like that. And so I do think that being comfortable sharing more of a personal side of you is going to be more beneficial. I came from corporate where I was like, you have to be this perfect, polished, professional human. And when I came into entrepreneurship, I was like, I'm still good at my job, but there are many things I still don't know as a business owner because I'm not a lawyer, an accountant, or I don't have an
Right.
operations or technology background. So I'm still figuring it out. And I do agree with you. I do think we're coming into this time where we are willing to share more and
Hmm.
be more authentic. And the reality is that's what people want. They want to feel connected. They want to feel normal. They want to know that other people have challenges. Do I think that like do it in moderation that makes it on brand and doesn't impact your ability to get clients? Sure. But I never would have thought that me being comfortable enough to share my experience would open up a million more doors for me than I ever thought possible. And so if somebody is listening to this and they're struggling with something and maybe they feel called to talk about it, but they don't know if they should or not yet, or they don't know how, take this as a sign that like your story is valid, your experience is valid, and there is somebody who could benefit from you and connect with you if you're willing to do the scary thing first, because that's all it takes.
Oh my gosh. Such wisdom, Emily, honestly. And I hope moms listening who are hearing this, whether it's navigating something like super challenging in your personal life, like we just shared before we pressed record, like we both went through crazy moves over this year. And I remember too, a lot of our client projects, they were like, hey, could you be on this meeting? And it was a similar conversation like, no, actually, like my life is in shambles. We won't have internet at the house this day. And so sometimes it feels really confronting, but everybody's moved. Everybody's navigated some kind of family challenge or has a friend or a relative who has gone through something like that. And I agree with you, Emily. I think at the end of the day, like we do business with human beings and like showing that human being side really solidifies like we're not just a bunch of robots, like we actually care. And, you returning to your clients' businesses and the work that you do just shows so much to how much you do care. You're like, I'm going to step aside from all the challenges that are going on. And this feels like my little safe haven. Like, I felt like that too. And I can imagine you were saying like it was kind of like an escape or a distraction from like some of the really harsh challenges that you were dealing with in your personal life. So I definitely hear that. And I think your clients are lucky to have you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I definitely think that that juggle of having time to really sit in your feelings and feel them and not mask them or put them on a shelf and let them sit there. I needed to do that, but I also realized that there is a balance of between what's healthy and what's not healthy, and grief, regardless of what it is, doesn't go away. You just
Hmm.
learn how to deal with it. So for me, I was telling myself, I'm in the darkest of dark moments right now. I know I will come out of this. I joke and I say, I knew I was going to be okay when I painted my fingernails. That's what it was. It was like the littlest of things that I sat in and
Mm.
I painted my fingernails because I was like, okay, painting my fingernails in my world meant that I was like prioritizing my needs or something was going to make me happy. And I was like, okay, that's the first step. And then I would continue to work at it. And then I'd be like, okay, I can take this meeting. I can get on this call and I can give them
Mm.
all of my energy. I might go back to the couch afterwards.
Yeah.
But I was like, but I can, and I'm probably wearing sweatpants from the waist down, and
Yeah.
I'm
Business on the
trying the
top,
best,
party on the
right?
bottom.
Right? Throw a hat on or something, cover up my face a little. But I was like, I really had to think about like, what can I do and serve my clients, but also like juggle me at the same time. And so to what you had said, like that little bit of a distraction was so helpful for me, and it helped me, I think, work through a lot of things because it's such a lonely experience. Like you don't talk about it. They tell you not to talk about it. You're not even supposed to in a regular pregnancy until a certain point in time. And so like
Mhm.
you're sitting in this loneliness. It actually really helped me to get on a Zoom call with somebody. And like I put makeup on that day and it was just like, okay, these are the little things that are going to like help me get through it. And so regardless of what the challenge somebody is facing, like those micro moments, I think are so important to lean into because it's going to just continue to grow from there. And if you can just make one little baby step and then another step, and it'll continue to get easier. But like I said, grief doesn't go away. You just learn how to navigate it throughout your life. And that's kind of how I've just been looking at it so far.
Honestly, I am so inspired by how you've handled this. And I think our handling, right? Like it's current. I think the takeaway that I have that I hope moms listening are hearing is that there are different seasons of business and life, and times where life will overshadow business a little bit, and times where we need to kind of just be intentional about how that goes. And I loved the picture you painted with painting your nails because I think it's hard for us sometimes, especially in those super dark moments or in those, months sometimes where we're like banging our head against the wall, trying to do something, or we are experiencing extreme grief to see any progress at all, right? Because all we focus on is either the grief or the negative things or the stuff we don't have. And
Yeah.
like just feeling this like enoughness and progress in today, I think is hard for women to feel for themselves. And so I appreciate you sharing that because even the smallest things sometimes they just make the biggest difference, right?
Oh my gosh, for sure. And you're so true. Like, I remember, like, I have a lot of entrepreneur friends who have these big dreams and these big goals for what they want their life and their business to look like. And when you're at your lowest moment, it's so easy to get angry when you see other people doing things that you know you are capable of and you just physically can't. Like I was like, I am trying to run through quicksand right now.
Mm,
That was how I could describe like me trying to make any sort of progress. And I remember I was equally excited because these are friends of mine that I love dearly and I want to see them succeed. But I just remember getting so angry and I had to do so much self conversations. I was talking to myself all the time. And I was like,
yeah.
again, you will get there. Your timing is off, and this is your pause season. And I just continued to to be met with this resistance. And I just kept thinking, like, if I can get through this resistance, there will be resilience and I will be stronger and I will come out of this and it will make me a better entrepreneur. It will make me a better mom and more appreciative, grateful mom once we have our first baby and all of these things that I just was like, how can I continuously spin this to be something that is going to help me versus like you said live in that negativity because that's easy. It's real
It's
easy
so
to
easy.
live there, right? Like
Yeah.
and if you're you and your partner and they're at work all day so you're also home alone, add on to the fact that I lost my first fur baby a couple months before all of this happened that
Oh
had
my
been with me through
gosh.
college. Like it was just all of it felt like life was crashing in and I just kept having to have conversations with myself and check in, which sounds silly, but it really is just like, okay, you're going to be okay. You're going to be okay. We're going to get through it. Like tomorrow is a new day. Try again tomorrow. And it was
Hmm.
just, I don't think women are nice enough to themselves, right? We put all of our energy, all of our love, all of our support into our children, into our spouses, into our families, into our friends, into our clients, insert anyone here in your
Yeah.
life.
Everyone but us.
Yeah. And so when you get to that point, I just remember thinking, like, I can't keep talking to myself this way. I'm never going to get through it. And this will be my life. And I just kept thinking, be nicer to yourself, talk to yourself. And that was something that, like, I would have always thought was weird until I was in the thick of it. So if
Hmm.
there is somebody listening who is in that negative mindset, just try having a nice conversation or motivate yourself or say this is going to be okay. And you might not believe yourself on day one. You might not believe
Hmm.
yourself on day two. It took me many months for me to get to this point where I am. And I still have bad days. I still have days where I'm like,
Hmm.
I screwed something up in my business or I couldn't figure out something that I thought I should have been able to figure out. And then I'm dealing with the fertility stuff when I close my laptop at the end of the day and I feel like the day was a failure. We've all had those, whether it's trying to have a child or having children or whatever the thing is. And I think that if you can use those moments to just tell yourself it's going to be fine. You don't
Mhm.
need to take life so seriously. You can be okay. Everything will be fine. I just kept repeating that, and it was a game changer for me. I don't think I would be nearly in the headspace I am today if I hadn't really tried to work on that, which I'm grateful that I pushed myself because I don't think I actually had the know with all of what I was trying to work through in the moment. But what is that? Hindsight's 2020, right? Where you're like, oh, I was
Yeah.
actually doing okay.
You know, those tools in your toolbox are so incredibly important. And I love that you've encouraged with that because I have a coach who says your first thought is just your reaction and you don't have any
Ooh,
control over that. But your second thought, you do have control over. And so I love that permission to kind of just let the first reaction be the first reaction. So, like the emotional thing, if it's negative self talk, if it is what it is, but then your decision that you have to make is between thought number one and thought number two. Like, no, how am I going to rewrite this in a way that tells me a better story or speaks kinder about myself or is more encouraging than whatever my original thought was or is kinder than my original thought was to maybe somebody outside of me, right? Someone cuts me off in traffic and my first inclination is let's call him an a-hole and get up there and bang that horn. And then I'm like, no, what example does that set for our children? He must be having a bad day. That's the difference, I think. And I think giving moms and just people in general permission, giving everybody permission to just be like, my first thought is my reaction. And then just like throw it out if we want to, just toss it right out the window.
yeah. Oh, I love that.
It's given me lots of grace because sometimes your first reaction, you're like, wow, am I just mean and angry like about everything? You know what I mean? Especially in seasons of life when like
Yeah.
you're trying to make it all work and then someone does something that wasn't what you expected. And so my default was anger, right? It was always like, I'm angry about this. I thought it would go this way and it's going this way. And then I started realizing like anger is just my natural reaction. My response can be something totally different. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
how I actually outwardly respond to this thing.
Yeah, it's so funny you say that because I was just having a conversation with somebody who was asking for my advice on how to respond to this person that had asked them to help them with a project in their business. And they interpreted Instagram message, I think, in a way that was like condescending or like a little bit flippant. And I was like, well, wait a second. You're interpreting that. Let's take a step back and
That's
maybe
right.
think about, maybe you are assuming that she has this negative, condescending tone to you. And maybe she's just being like casual with you. And so it ended up being where, yeah, I was right. And she was just like, that's just how this person talks. But the person on the receiving end, now the interesting piece is the person that was talking to her had on paper a more successful business. And so she
Mm,
was interpreting some of these things. And I was like, that's your insecurity that you're not where she is in her business yet coming out. And we all do that, right? Where
that's
somebody
right.
who is a couple paces ahead of us says something and you internalize it something because you're just perpetuating maybe some of that negative self talk that you have or those insecurities of like, oh, she's talking down to me because I'm not as successful as she is, or I'm not making enough money, or my audience is a little different. And it's
Mm,
so interesting that you say that because I find that oftentimes my first reaction is like my inner insecurity for myself or something that I think negatively about. And now I'm aware that that happens. So when that does come up and I feel those feelings, I'm like, okay, I know what this is. This is something that I need to actively work on. And to
mhm,
what you had said, that first reaction, throw it away. I acknowledge it as that's an insecurity of mine I still need to keep working on and continue to build
mm,
my confidence in. But here's how I'm going to take action in that
totally.
next thought and thing.
Mhm,
So it's really interesting. I really like that, the throwaway, the first one, because it makes me think of like, okay, that's the throwaway is the insecurity that's coming up in the form of your reaction or how you want to respond. But the reality is like we'll still move forward as a business, still work through whatever you need to. And then you might find like, oh, that wasn't so hard, or oh, she was trying to be nice and wants to collaborate, or this, or whatever the example might be. But I really like that quote that you shared.
yeah, it's super elegant. And honestly, like if you are challenged by like tossing away the first thought, or if it doesn't feel super intuitive to you right now, like I started writing it down. So I'd be like reaction or like thought number one. And you just like look at it as it is, right? Like, cause I think a lot of us assign like negative and positive things to emotions generally. And sometimes anger in certain situations, like very competitive ones, like I used to play competitive sports when I was in high school and in college, and that helped me a lot. Like that's a good emotion to have during sports, right? It's very motivating, it's very exciting. And so to me, I'm like, okay, well, let's just say that the first thing is, right? Like, it just is.
Yeah.
And then if we're writing it down, we're like, okay, and then so what do I want, right? What do I want next? Because I think sometimes even my first emotions, when I pass them through, I call Lauren, my number two at operations agency. She's our account director. I call her my speed bump because when we manage any teammate at operations agency, I always go back to her and I'm like, hey, this is what I was thinking. This was my first reaction. Here's what I think we should do. Do you have another perspective on this? So if you have a partner or a person, this could be at home with your partner at home. This could be at work with your number two. This could be with a colleague or a friend. Like, just to ask them, be like, hey, this was my reaction. And here's how I think I want to do this. Is my gut off on this or how is this going? And like, you can call them gut checks, you can call them speed bumps, you can call them whatever, because I'm always too quick to action in some ways. In other ways, quick to action is good. But I am very quick to action. And so I joke with Lauren, I'm like, you're my speed bump. I'm like, what do I do about this?
Yeah, I love that because most of the time, depending on how big your business is, right? If you're just getting started, like it's you and
That's
you are the
right.
one who is doing everything. You're making all the decisions. Like I joke around that like my like employee is my cat because it's me and him during the day. And otherwise,
Just chat.
I'm just making decisions and trying to, build the best that I can. And I will say the best biggest impact I've had on my business is surrounding myself with other female entrepreneurs and finding people that understand my quirks and they balance me out in areas where I'm like quick and hot and I want to make a decision. I've got people that
Mhm.
balance are that, that speed bump, like you said. And that's honestly part of the reason why I wanted to launch my community because I was like, man, entrepreneurship is lonely. And it's
Mm.
just so hard when you're trying to build something and you're doing new things you've never done before and you're like, I don't know if this is going to work, and it would be so nice to have a friend to, hey, could you take a look at this? What do you think? I'm going
Yeah,
through this,
totally.
could you answer this? And some people have built-in communities just through the nature of like where they live. I got nobody where I live in New York. I didn't have any support locally in Florida. And so it was just something that like, if you want a game changer for your business, like having a small inner circle of women or friends or people that you can turn to that can give you that advice because they love you, but in the all reality, like they don't have any stock in your life. They have no stock in your business. So they can be a neutral party and like give it to you straight, tell you the hard thing. But I always say a lot of my success has been on the backs of the women that I've been so fortunate to surround myself. What is that quote where it's like behind every well-written email is like three other women who have been like who like read it or like fact checked it or whatever. Like to me, I feel that in my in my business for sure.
Oh my gosh, I love that. Honestly, great nod to community because there is a massive, massive shift when you can start to get into rooms with people who can
Yeah.
support you, who can speak possibility into your dreams, who can like see the blind spots that you can't see. That's so incredible. Emily, you are amazing. Thank you for your time, your bravery, your honesty. I think you just gave us all a gift, honestly, just like being able to think through this and understand a little bit about what you might be going through. Cause I know for sure that there is a mom listening or somebody who's trying to become a mom listening who is navigating some of this stuff and really, really going through some of the grief that you've experienced. So thank you for taking time from your process, from your day, from your clients to come and speak to us. And like, I've just had such a good time getting to know you too. Like you're just such a gift.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much, Allie. This was so great. And thank you for allowing me to come on your podcast. I know I had mentioned this to you before. I was like, oh, I feel like I'm a little bit like an imposter because I'm not a mom yet. But the mothers that I have met and the people I have met through sharing my experience have been so open and welcoming and inviting and supportive. So thank you so much for you're creating the space for me to share my story. And hopefully it helps your listeners who might be going through something hard on their own.
I think it will. I really do. I think you came in encouraging. And I just want to validate that, like, planning to have a family, you really do start that process of becoming a mom. Like, I remember we tried for 2.5 years for our first son, Frank. And I remember feeling like a failure a
Yeah.
lot. I was just like completely gutted a lot of times by that experience. And I let it project into other areas of my identity, right? I was like, well, if I can't even do this, how can I sit on
Mm,
in a board meeting? It's so challenging and it's so fraudulent. There is no direct correlation between the two, but then we connect it because we are like holistic human beings and we try to see patterns and things, and it's just so challenging. So I just want to say that you have already started your process of becoming a mom. Your headspace has changed, your habits have changed, like all the things. And so I just have the best wishes and most excitement for you and your family ahead, honestly.
thank you so much. That means the world to me. It really does.
Oh my gosh, Emily, I don't want to say goodbye, but I will.
I
And let folks
know.
know where they can stay in touch with you, because I'm sure everybody's like, where can I get me some more of Emily? So tell us about all the places that folks can follow along and learn more about what you do at Servicepreneur.
Yeah. So my website is theservicepreneur.com. There you can find out about my one on one services as well as joining my community, which I would love to have you. I am mostly on Instagram and LinkedIn. So on LinkedIn, it's just Emily Sereno. And then my Instagram is at the Servicepreneur, and that's where you'll find all the links. And I share a lot of great free advice on those channels. I also have the Servicepreneur podcast where I share tactical marketing and business advice. I bring other business experts in. And the whole purpose of that is to listen to an episode and then go implement something in your business. So I am all for sharing free advice, budget friendly advice, and just being like the ultimate hype girl for you in your business. So come connect with me if you are interested.
So exciting, Emily. I'm going to put all that stuff in the show notes for everybody listening. And thank you again so much for your time today.
Yes, thank you.